Mothers are the greatest gift I know. Sharing and caring for her own. She is there in times of need. With her hand she wipes her tears. Mothers are the greatest gift I know. Mothers there when others walk away. Forsaking herself so her children can have. On her knees, you can hear her pray. Protect my family, Lord, please make a way. Mothers are the greatest gift I know. God has chosen mothers. God has chosen mothers to bring life into this world. If it wasn't for this gift, you and I, we wouldn't exist. God has made us special. God has made us special. Oh yeah. We should cherish her always. Mothers are the greatest gift I know. She chastises us at times when we do wrong. Then she reach out to us and hold us in her arms. Oh Lord, it doesn't matter how old you get. Respect your mother, she's a special gift. Oh, mothers are the greatest. Mothers are the greatest. She walks the floor all night long. Oh yeah. Mothers are the greatest. You see, fathers, they okay, but there's something about the mothers. Mothers are the greatest gift I know. On a cold Christmas Eve in 1952, when Korea was in the midst of a civil war, there was a young woman who struggled along the street and was about to deliver a child. She pleaded with the passers-by, saying, "Help me please, my baby is about to come." But no one paid attention to her. A middle-aged couple walked by, and the wife was pushed away from them, and the couple sneered, "Where's the father?" The couple laughed and went home. The young woman almost doubled up from the contractions, and she watched them go. "Please," she begged. They didn't help her. She had heard of a missionary living nearby who might help her, so hurriedly she began walking to that village. If only the missionary could help her. Shivering and in pain, she struggled over the frozen countryside, but the night was so cold. The snow began to fall. Realizing that the time was near to deliver her baby, she took shelter under a bridge. There alone, her baby was born on Christmas Eve. Worried about her newborn son, she took off her clothes, wrapped them around the baby, and held him close in the warm circle of her arms. The next day, the missionary braved the new snow to deliver Christmas packages. As he walked along, he heard the cry of the baby. He followed the sound to the bridge, and under he found the young mother frozen to death, still clutching her crying newborn son. The missionary tenderly lifted the baby out of her arms. When the baby was 10 years old, his now adopted father, the missionary, told him the story of his mother's death on Christmas Eve. The young boy cried, realizing the sacrifice his mother had made for him. The next morning, the missionary rose early to find the boy's bed empty. Seeing a fresh set of small footprints in the snow outside, he bundled up warmly in a winter coat and followed the trail. It led back to the bridge where the young mother had died. As the missionary approached the bridge, he stopped, stunned at what he saw. Kneeling in the snow was his son, naked and shivering uncontrollably. His clothes lay beside him in a small pile. Moving closer, he heard the boy say through his chattering teeth, "Mother, were you this cold for me?" That story reminds me of another mother and son who sacrificed so much. That mother's name was Mary. Yeah. And her son's name was Jesus. Yeah. Yeah. You know the story, don't you? Yeah. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son. You see, motherhood reminds us so much about God. Because motherhood is a constant demand for the gift of love and caring. Yeah. The great poet Ralph Waldo Emerson said, "Men are what their mothers make them." And an old Spanish proverb says, "An ounce of mother is worth a pound of preacher." There are some great portraits of mother in the scripture, aren't there? Yeah. I love the picture of the mother of Moses, who cared so much for her son that she broke the law, didn't she? Yeah. In order to teach him the faith of his people and to save his life. We see the sacrificial love of the mother who appeared before King Solomon and told him she was willing to have her son taken away by another woman rather than see the boy divided up and any harm come to him. Or the mother of James and John, who loved her sons so much that she wanted them to sit by the Lord in the heavenly kingdom. Yes, sir. Don't forget the mother of King Lemuel or Samuel, who gave him advice about a godly woman and how to pick a good woman. And so he wrote that in Proverbs 31. Now, as we think about Mother's Day, I'm aware that Mother's Day can sometimes be a difficult time. Because for some, they never could be a mother. Some may not have had the best mother in the world. Some may have been mother who has passed on. Some are mothers who have lost a child. Some are the mothers who feel the pain of a wayward child. And some are mothers who are flying solo, working hard to try to raise a child. But this morning, I want to begin by giving you this idea. Having the mind of Christ, which is our yearly theme, is to love like a godly mother. Yes, sir. Having the mind of Christ is to love like a godly mother. And we see that in our passage here, 1 Samuel chapter 1. First, we see that the love of the mother can handle affliction. Yeah. Verses 1 through 7. Then we see the godly love of a mother will give hopeful appeal. Verses 8 through 18. And then finally, we see that because of the godly love of a mother, it will bring honored approval. Yes. Verses 19 through 29. You know, as I was trying to print out my sermon this morning, I couldn't get all my pages printed out. So I had to use my computer in order to be able to give you the message. But a mother can make a significant spiritual impact on her family. Amen. And children and others who she has influences on, with or without the help of a father. Mm-hmm. Now, I believe that the family is in crisis because of families are not being led by godly men and godly women. Yes, and you see, we got to get back to what we were taught. Yes, sir. By our parents and grandparents. Yes. Then we will strengthen our home. Yes, and strengthen our churches. Yes, sir. We will point our kids and pave the way for them to follow Jesus Christ. Yes. 1 Samuel chapter 1 is one of my favorite mother stories in the Bible because Hannah is a great role model for all of us and mothers in a variety of ways. Because first, she couldn't be a mother at first. And there are some who can't biologically be a mother, but you can be a mother in other ways. Then she was a mother. And then she was a mother who gave up her child at an early age. And so we can learn so much from her. And so let's first look at, we can see that having the mind of Christ makes you a godly mother, and that mother has love to handle affliction. Look at verses 1 through 7. We'll quickly go through them real quickly again. Now there was a certain man in Ramathophim of the mountains of Ephraim. His name was Elkanah, the son of Joram, the son of Elihu, the son of Tohu, the son of Zeph, an Ephraimite. He had two wives. The name of one was Hannah, the name of the other Peninnah. Peninnah had children, but Hannah had no children. This man went up from his city yearly to worship and sacrifice to the Lord of hosts in Shiloh. Also the two sons of Eli, Hophni and Phinehas, the priests of the Lord, were there. And whenever the time came for Elkanah to make an offering, he would give portions to Peninnah his wife and to all her sons and daughters. But to Hannah he would give a double portion, for he loved Hannah, although the Lord had closed her womb. And her rival also provoked her severely to make her miserable, because the Lord had closed her womb. So it was, year by year, when she went up to the house of the Lord, that she provoked her, that is her rival. Therefore she wept and did not eat. You see, Hannah faced some affliction in her life, didn't she? Yeah. She couldn't have children. And she had another woman in the home who was a rival. Now, motherhood is a very difficult thing. It comes with many trials and tears. It will bring affliction into the life of any mother. And so on this Mother's Day, you may not feel too comfortable. Maybe there are some things that you would change if you could have, but you can't. But the good news is, and maybe there's some things that we would have done for Mother, we would change if we could, but we can't. Because the past is the past. Yeah. But here's the good news. Let me remind you, God not only forgives, he also forgets. Yeah. Yeah. And so encourage those in your sphere of influence. Encourage your children that if you made mistakes, tell them don't repeat my mistakes. Yeah. But help them to realize that God is a God of mercy and grace. Yeah. And in love, help them to learn that God can take them through any troubles, trials, difficulties in life. Yeah. Because life is going to throw you a curve. Yes, sir. Life is not going to always be smooth. Now, Hannah's life was different from others' life, but you're going to face affliction in life. Everybody ain't going to like you at school. Come on. Everybody ain't going to like you on the job. Everybody ain't going to like you even, may I say it, in your family. Sometimes that's the reality, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
And Hannah had that situation in her home because her husband did some things. We'll look at a little bit later, but she had some affliction. You see, the good news is we can learn from Hannah, because even though she faced affliction, she didn't let that define her. She understood that she wanted to have a different way of life. You see, mothers are those, and those who are like mothers have a special place in their heart for loving children. Hannah was not at this time a mother. And Hannah, whose name means blessed or grace, had no children, and she lived in a difficult home environment. Before Samuel was born, she pleaded with God for him to open her womb. She desperately wanted a child, so much so that her life was miserable because she couldn't have any children. And she was constantly saying to her husband how much she wanted to have kids. In fact, she went through a stretch where she cried all the time and would not eat. You see, in the society of that day, children were not seen as a burden, but a blessing. That's why the psalmist can write, children are the blessing of the Lord. The fruit of the womb is his reward. You see, today, in that day, they thought that their child might play an important role in the program that God had for the nation. And in the program of God bringing the great leader, the Messiah,
Yes, sir.
to lead the nation. And so they wanted children. They wanted to play a part because they knew that every time a child is born, the image of God is multiplied and the glory of God is displayed, because no other child will be like their child.
That's right.
And God has a special role for them.
Yes.
And so Hannah had a good desire. She wanted to have children. And she had a rival named Peninnah. Because, in that culture of that day, God told the men and the people that if a man died and he had brothers and he was married, that his brothers were to marry the woman, the widow of that brother, to raise up a seed to continue the program God had for the nation to continue so that the Messiah could come. And so, but God never said anything about men multiplying their wives. As a matter of fact, he forbid it.
Yes, sir.
Because he knew the problems it would make.
Huh.
And we see that in this situation with Hannah. You see, sometimes you go through afflictions as mothers for many years. Knowing mothers praying for wayward children. Knowing mothers who want to see their children walk with the Lord. That may happen for many years. And some children, they're not going to get right until their deathbed. But you keep praying, mama. You keep loving them, mama. You keep praying them to the Lord. Because God says, my word will not return void.
Right.
Sow that seed. You have a burden to perpetuate godliness. And so you tell them the right way. And you brought them to Sunday school in the church. You tried to point them to Jesus Christ. And see, that's why the church should play an important role in helping come alongside and providing help for mothers. And that's why we have to do all we can to help the home and help mothers and those who function as mothers to other young women. It's important because they make a great impact on the life of those coming behind. There were 4 biblical scholars, and they were arguing over Bible translations. One said he preferred the King James because its beauty and eloquent English, the these and the thous and the rigorousness and the bittitudes. Another said he liked the New American Standard for its strict literalism and how it makes the reader go from passage to passage with confidence of the accuracy of the original text. The third scholar was sold on the New Living Translation because its use of contemporary phrases and idioms that capture the meaning of difficult ideas. After being quiet for a moment, the fourth and last scholar admitted, I have personally preferred my mother's translation. When the other scholars laughed at him, he said, yeah, she translated the scriptures for me. You see, my father died when my brothers and sisters and I were young. And we struggled. We had difficulty every day. But we never went without a meal. We never went without a Christmas present. We never went without clothes. Because my mama prayed. My mama worked. My mama did all she could. And she leaned on God. You see, my mama's life was my Bible. I saw what Jesus could do through my mama's life. And so, when I saw it, it was more real. You see, when you see it, that's when it's real. And if you have the mind of Christ, God will give you hope amidst affliction. And that's what he gave to Hannah. Secondly, we see, you have the mind of Christ, we see love in a hopeful appeal. Look at verses 8 through 18. Then Elkanah, her husband, said to her, why do you weep? And why do you not eat? And why is your heart grieved? Am I not bearing to you the 10 sons? So Hannah arose, and after they had finished eating and drinking in Shiloh, now Eli the priest was sitting on the seat by the doorpost of the tabernacle of the Lord. And she was in the business of sowing, prayed to the Lord, and wept in anguish. Then she made a vow and said, O Lord of hosts, this is her hopeful appeal. If you will indeed look on the affliction of your maidservant, and remember me, and not forget your maidservant, but will give your maidservant a male child, then I will give him to the Lord all the days of his life, and no razor shall come upon his head. In other words, he would be a Nazarite. And that was those who were dedicated to the Lord all their life. And they had certain requirements they had to live by. Samson was also a Nazarite. And it happened as she continued praying before the Lord that Eli, the priest, watched her mouth. Now Hannah spoke in her heart, only her lips moved, but her voice was not heard. Therefore Eli thought she was drunk. So Eli said to her, how long will you be drunk? Put your wine away from you. And Hannah answered and said, no, my Lord, I'm a woman of sorrowful spirit. I have drunk neither wine nor intoxicating drink. Notice that difference. But I have poured out my soul before the Lord. Do not consider your maidservant a wicked woman. For out of the abundance of my complaint and grief, I have spoken until now. Then Eli answered and said, go in peace, and the God of Israel grant your petition, which you have asked of him. And she said, let your maidservant find favor in your sight. So the woman went her way and ate, and her face was no longer sad. Now, when you listen to her husband, he asked a silly question, didn't he? Did I mean more to you than 10 sons? Well, evidently not. And fellas, at a time like that, that's not a wise question to ask. Mothers are sensitive to the needs and feelings of others. While we men often overlook how events, situations, and circumstances can make them feel. You see, neither Goods nor her husband was going to meet the needs she had. She desperately wanted a gift from God in the form of a child. And so in Hannah's first phase of her life, she was addicted. And so, because she didn't have any children. And so any mother, those who have the mothering qualities can understand what Hannah was going through. But she made a vow to the Lord and said, Lord, if you would hear my hopeful appeal, then I will give to you what is really yours in the first place.
Yeah.
Because they come from you. And so, when you have love like a godly mother, you can reach God with your appeal to heaven.
Come on.
You see, a loving mother knows to pray to God.
Come on.
Now the priest, Eli, he was looking at her. He saw her moving her mouth, but no sound was coming out. So obviously she was trying to pray and keep those prayers between her and God. But Eli misinterpreted what she was doing, didn't he?
Yeah.
He thought she was drunk. You see, sometimes we misinterpret what people are doing.
Uh-huh.
That's why the Bible says, judge nothing before the time.
Yeah.
And also, look at the character of that person.
Yeah.
Would that be out of character?
Come on.
People are so quick to believe the worst about others.
Yeah.
Oh, did you hear what I heard about sister so-and-so?
Come on.
If it's bad, they're quick to believe it.
Yeah.
If it's good, they're quick to dismiss it.
Come on.
Did you hear what happened to Reverend so-and-so? If it's bad, they're quick to believe it.
Yes, sir.
If it's good, oh, ain't no big deal.
Come on.
But you see, we have to realize that if it's out of character, believe the best
Yes, sir.
until you have the truth.
Yes, sir.
Eli investigated and found out she wasn't drunk.
Yeah.
She was just in anguish of soul.
Yeah.
She was, like the Bible says, praying those prayers that couldn't be uttered.
Come on.
And that's when the Holy Spirit steps in. That
Yeah.
the Bible says that sometimes when you are so anguished of soul, when you are so burdened of heart, when you can't even say the words, the Holy Spirit will utter and groan to God. Groanings
Yeah.
that you can't utter. And that's where he's in the world. And she had a hopeful appeal, though, because she knew who they came to. She knew that motherhood is a partnership with God.
Yeah.
It involves helping to shape that next generation so that we can point them to Christ. You see, Mary, the mother of Jesus, went through difficulty and poverty, didn't she?
Yeah.
Matter of fact, she was so poor that when they brought the offering, it was the offering for the poorest 2 doves, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That's what the poorest people of the time could bring to the sacrifice. But you know what? She wasn't really poor, was she?
Come on.
Because she was rich in Jesus.
Yeah.
And if you have Jesus
Yes, sir.
and you appeal to him,
Yes, sir.
you're rich in him.
Yeah.
You're not poor because the Bible says that though he was rich,
Yeah.
he became poor coming down here for our sake.
Yeah.
That we through his poverty
Yeah.
might be made rich.
Yeah.
Because he was rich.
Yes, sir.
You see, do you think you're poor?
No.
Have you ever experienced the pressure trying to buy the things your child needs? Most mothers have gone through that, haven't they? And especially today's commercialized age,
Yeah.
because they gotta have the right shoes, the right designer clothes, and all the other things that the other kids had. But here's the thing. We had to teach them what Jesus taught that man who came to him and said, my brother won't split the inheritance with me. Jesus said, take heed and be aware of covetousness. For a man's life does not consist in the abundance of the things he possesses. There's nothing wrong with having nice things, but your life is not consistent of that.
That's right.
Your life is what is between you
Yeah.
and God.
Yeah.
And so we want to teach them to understand what is important. And the important thing is to pray.
Yeah.
The important thing is to reach out to God. The important thing is to say, God, here's what I need. But God, I don't just want it for me.
Yeah.
I want it for you to look good.
Yeah.
Bless me with this
Yeah.
so that I can use it
Yeah.
so that you will look good. You see, if you do that, that's a hopeful appeal.
Yeah.
And that comes with godly women. There was a man I read about And he had a long conversation with his pastor about becoming a member of the church. And after a period of time, the man said he was ready to join. The pastor was curious, so he asked, "Why are you ready to join the church now? What did I say that convinced you to join the church?" He said, "There was nothing I ever heard you say. It was the way my mother lived. My mother lived it before me. My mother prayed. My mother took me to church. My mother taught me about God. My mother taught me to love God. My mother did the best she could by the grace of God, and it was the way she lived. That's what made me want to have a relationship with Jesus." You see, the most important thing in the world is to introduce people to Jesus so they can call on his name, so they can have a hopeful appeal to him. You see, your child standing before God is more important than their social status. It's more important than their intellectual acumen, their musical ability, or athletic accomplishments. Nothing wrong with all that. But here's the important thing. A mother who passes her long, authentic faith and expresses hopeful appeals will bless her home from generation to generation. And Hannah was a woman who prayed, and God answered her hopeful appeal. And we can learn from Hannah, can't we? Because God will hear you and will answer your prayer. But then third and finally, if you're going to have the mind of Christ and have the love of a godly mother, we see that love brings honor and approval. Look at verses 19 and 28. Then they arose early in the morning and worshipped before the Lord, and returned and came to the house of Ramah. And Elkanah knew Hannah his wife, and the Lord remembered her. Notice that. The Lord remembered her, didn't he? So it came to pass, in the process of time, that Hannah conceived a boy son, and called his name Samuel, saying, "Because I've asked for him from the Lord." Now the man Elkanah and all his house went up to the altar to the Lord, and yearly sacrifice and his vow. But Hannah did not go up, for she said to her husband, "Not until the child is weaned, then I will take him, that he may appear before the Lord and remain there forever." So he would be a Nazarite. And Elkanah, her husband, said to her, "Do what seems best to you. Wait until you have weaned him. Only let the Lord establish his word." So the woman stayed and nursed her son until she had weaned him. Now when she had weaned him, she took him up with her with 3 bulls, 1 ephah of flour, and a skin of wine, and brought him to the house of the Lord in Shiloh. And the child was young. Then they slaughtered a bull and brought the child to Eli. And she said, "O my Lord, as your soul lives, my Lord, I am the woman who stood by you here praying to the Lord. For this child I prayed, and the Lord has granted me my petition, which I asked of him. Therefore I also have lent him to the Lord. As long as he lives, he shall be lent to the Lord." So they worship the Lord there. And so Elkanah and Hannah had a child, because the Lord remembered her. And so she gave birth to her son. She named him Samuel, which means the Lord, or I asked the Lord for him. So here she is, she's thrilled. But you have to understand, in the midst of excitement, she needs to know something. That being a mother is not going to be easy. And even though you are a mother, nothing can fill the ultimate need of the life of anyone, man, woman, boy, or girl, other than the fulfillment that comes from knowing God. You see, if you don't know God, even if you get that which you desperately thought you wanted, it won't fulfill you. Hannah wanted this child, and it will bring her great fulfillment, but only God can ultimately fill the vacuum that is in the human heart, because it has a God-shaped void. But Hannah was rewarded because God approved her plan. And she gave her child back to the Lord. You see, if you are a mother like Hannah with a God-approved plan, He will bless you in ways that you can't count. We clearly see here that this was a godly woman. Ever seen any women like that? I know I have. And they always influence the next generation. And if you've been around the black church anytime, you've seen this in our churches. Because our church was great at giving our people a sense of dignity and godly pride. And so they would say to women, whether they had children or not, who gave out godly counsel and godly women, you are mothers of the church. And those mothers of the church would give spiritual lessons that would bless the lives of so many. I know I've been blessed by the lives of my mother, my sisters, and other godly women who have pointed me in the right direction. And here's Hannah. Her son, Samuel, was born. No doubt it created great joy. Now, she was going to give him up, like she said. Now, what you got to understand, Samuel here is probably 6 or 7 years of age. You know why? Because Eli wouldn't have been able to do anything with a baby, right? He couldn't help him. And Samuel actually helped work around the temple. You remember that, don't you? When you read about Samuel, if you read on further in the Bible. But think about the picture the Bible points for us of Eli. He was a crusty old dude. He was overindulgent. He let his sons get away with murder, didn't he? Matter of fact, they were so wicked and disobedient that God killed them. Later on, didn't he? Because they were wicked. And so he wasn't no good father figure. But you see, she put her son in the hands of the Lord. That's a great lesson for all of us. We have to put our children in the hands of the Lord and say, Lord, you gave them to me, and I give them back to you. Because he says, I've lent him to the Lord. And so Samuel became a great prophet and judge. Samuel labored throughout his life for the welfare of the people of God. And he served Israel as the last judge before the monarchy. And so the record shows that the nation flourished under his leadership. So just think of how great was this man because of the influence of his mother. You see, a lot of times we think of releasing our children when they go off to college or when they leave the home or go to the military. But it's much earlier than that. It's progressive. It begins early. Moms and those who have the mother's influence on children. What I notice is that when God blesses you with children and you trust him, it becomes easier, not easy though, because it's never easy, but it's easier when you know you're giving them to God to release them. Because you know, Lord, I've given them to you. Hannah knew she would have to release Samuel sooner than most folks. But she knew that was part of her life action plan. Lord, I'm giving them to you. Sometimes our giving them up is a painful process, isn't it? But don't let that erode your confidence in God. Because ultimately, you are raising them to release them. Let me say it again. You are raising them to release them. And that's what Hannah knew. And so she had an honor given to her because of her approval. Samuel became a great man in the kingdom. Samuel became a great leader in Israel. And Hannah understood that though she had the child for only a few years, she laid a strong foundation in his life. And that's what godly mothers do.
Yes, sir.
They lay a strong foundation in a child's life.
Oh, yeah.
Now, sometimes the child don't always live according to that foundation that was laid.
Right.
Some of them become prodigals.
Yeah.
Go out and live in the pig pen for a while.
Yeah.
But don't give up.
Amen.
Don't give in.
Yes, sir.
Just keep on praying.
Yeah.
Because God has a way
He does.
of bringing them around,
Yeah.
bringing them to their senses, and helping them understand, I've got to get back
Yeah.
to where I need to be. And so she knew she was in the approval stage.
Yeah.
She had done the right thing. Moms, and those like moms, if you pointed them to Jesus, if you taught them the right way, if you brought them to the house of the Lord, if you give them godly wisdom, you've done the right thing.
Yeah.
You have God's approval plan. And so parenting is to raise children so they'll know the Lord. And then you can release them to go out and let him do his will.
Yeah.
You see, the investment of a mother in her two children, and the investment of godly women who function like mothers in the lives of others cannot be matched. It cannot be beaten. And when moms are faithful to God and show their children the way to go, blessings will flow.
Yeah.
Protections will come. God will work in a mighty way.
Yeah.
You see, mother's love can't be beaten. Mother's love is great. Mother's love will last.
Yes, sir.
There was an article in the National Geographic several years ago that provided a penetrating picture of love. After a forest fire in Yellowstone National Park, the forest rangers began their trek up the mountain to assess how bad of a damage the fire had done. One ranger found a bird literally petrified in the ashes. The bird was perched on the ground at the base of a tree and looked like a statue. Somewhat sickened by the eerie sight, he knocked over the bird with a stick. When he did that, 3 tiny chicks scurried from under the dead mother's wings. This loving mother bird, aware of the disaster that was impending, had carried her offspring to the base of that tree and gathered them under her wings, knowing that the smoke would rise and that she would die. She refused to abandon her babies. She was willing to die because she protected them under her wings. That is the love that God demonstrates to us, and the love of God that you see in a godly mother.
Yes, sir.
Because in a godly mother, you see the sacrificial love of Jesus Christ. Imagine Mary knowing what Jesus was going to go through. And imagine at the cross when she saw him ridiculed, beaten, and bruised for you and I. You see, that's the kind of love that makes a difference. That's the kind of love that makes a difference in your life. That's the kind of love of a godly mother. Should we remember mothers on Mother's Day? Yes, we should. Why? I'll tell you why. Because even with all the stumbling blocks, the pitfalls, the broken dreams, the dirty diapers, the dirty dishes, we're talking about a beautiful plan. God's plan. God planned motherhood. God gave us mothers. And God shows us by his love and what he did for us. But life too crowded for you. Not enough room. He won't let you in. Got good news for you. There's room at the cross just for you. Just want you to know there's room at the cross just for you. Don't worry about the crowd. There are millions. They've come. They found their place. You can find yours. There's room for you. Oh, are you that one? Why don't you try? All right, just for you. Anybody steal your joy? Want you to know that. That's, oh yeah, just for you. Oh, oh, the joy is waiting on you. Oh, he want to rekindle your joy lamp. Oh, just for you. Oh, yes, yes. Oh, yes. Don't worry about the crowd. Don't care what size you are, tall or short, wide or thin. There's still joy. Oh, just for you the world. There's joy. And it's waiting on you. One might ask, where can I find this cross? I want you to know it's right where you are. Nearly 2,000 years ago, on a hill called Mount Calvary, he mobilized his cross. He moves his cross wherever you are. On September the 11th, he moved his cross in 4 airplanes. Moved his cross in cave buildings in New York City. He moved his cross in a field in Pennsylvania. He moved his cross in Pentagon in Washington, D.C. He's right there. Maybe you're in a hospital bed. Maybe you're behind prison walls. Wherever you are, I just want you to know there's hope at the cross. Just for you. It's life after death. Oh, he told me to tell you, we'll see our loved ones again. Oh, oh, he has everything for you. He hasn't left you. He hasn't forsaken you. Oh, yes. Don't worry about the crowd. There's an individual love just for you. Oh, oh yes. Whatever you need. Tried everybody. You've been everywhere. You tried everything. Oh, why not try him? Oh, yes. At the cross, whatever you need. Move his cross in a sick. Move his cross in a jail cell. Move his cross. You're riding along in your car, on your job. When you're on a plane, bus or train. He's right there. Oh, yeah, why don't you try? Why don't you try? Why don't you try? Love of a mother. I have been called to go out and share the message of Jesus Christ. Concerning not everybody is blessed to live in a home with a godly mother.
Yeah.
But he said, I'll be a father to the fatherless.
Yeah.
And a mother to those who have no mothers.
Yeah.
And you and I have been called
Yes, sir.
to go out and let the world know
Yeah.
that Jesus
Yes, sir.
and his love
Yeah.
is wide enough
Yeah.
and deep enough
Yeah.
to take them in.
Oh, yeah.
And then when they come to him, they get anchored in the truth.
Yeah.
When you get anchored in the truth, nothing can shake your foundation. Nothing can take you away.
Oh, Lord.
Nothing can keep you down. Because when your soul is anchored in him,
Yeah.
you'll have the satisfaction of knowing that you will last until the battle's over.
Yeah.
Has your soul been anchored?
Yeah.
If your soul has been anchored, joy with me is with